What's going on, Bolt fam? It's your host, Taylor of the Electric Edge podcast. This is a rough episode to make. Thursday, Keenan Allen was back at practice. Chargers fans were hyped. And then an hour and a half later, Rashawn Slater's down, has to be carted off the field. And then we find out that he tore his patellar tendon and he is out for the year. Major blow to this offensive line. Going into training camp, going into the season, the Chargers had the best tackle duo in the NFL with Joe Alt and Rashawn. Now they got to scramble to get the best five out there. And the question is the best five on this roster right now? In this episode, we'll talk a little about the current starting five and the criticism I have of the Chargers front office not addressing this in the offseason. They addressed one piece of the offensive line and failed to do anything else with the glaring gaps that were seen throughout the season and especially in the wildcard game against the Texans. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. And as always, leave me some comments. Leave me your thoughts. Always love to read fan comments and reply back to you. So, with that being said, let's get into this episode. As I mentioned, news came out on Thursday that Rashawn Slater tore his patellar tendon. Unfortunately, with this kind of injury, there's a stat that came out that 79% of individuals in the NFL who have this injury do not return to their prior form. Some players that have had this injury or currently are dealing with this injury, Victor Cruz comes to mind. He never returned to the same form. J.C. Jackson tore his patellar tendon as well. He was never the player he was with the Patriots that he was with the Chargers, but there's other issues with that. Nakobe Dean of the Eagles, I believe, tore his patellar tendon this season. And then first-round pick of the Chiefs, Josh Simmons, tore his patellar tendon last year while he was at Ohio State. So it remains to be seen what he looks like at an NFL level. The one positive of this is that the Chargers do have Joe Alt, whose natural position is that left tackle. So it looks like he will move over to that left tackle spot. Unfortunately, Trey Pipkins is going to be back on the line full-time. He's going to go to that right tackle spot, which he has played at NFL level. Then you'll have Mekhi Becton at right guard, Brad Bozeman at center, and then your left guard position is going to be Zion Johnson. So Harbaugh announced on Friday, he talked about the industry to Rashawn. He said it's like a gut punch to the right to the solar plexus, takes the wind out of you. He says, just feel bad for Rashawn. I know how much he's put into it, how much he's trained, and I also know he'll attack the rehab and train. He'll be back, not this season, but I know he'll be back. Now, some of his teammates, Joe Alt and Trey Pipkins, addressed the injury as well. But in this article, it talks about that starting five, that what it's going to look like. So Harbaugh said their best starting five right now from left to right are Joe Alt, Zion Johnson, Bradley Bozeman, Mekhi Becton, and Pipkins. And this is the group that they're going to start with and roll with. Now, there were a lot of free agents in 25 that the Chargers could have signed, and they had the cap room to do it. The comments coming from both Ortiz and Harbaugh was that we need to put players around Justin Herbert that can get to his level, right? The Chargers in the offseason re-signed Bradley Bozeman as a center. Okay, no problem. They signed Mekhi Becton, which I thought was a great signing, and they got him for a pretty good deal. But there were other players out there that they could have signed to elevate that interior offensive line, which was the problem. It was never the anchors. The interior offensive line was the problem last year. So I decided to start going through the free agent list and looking through PFF stats of the current Charger players and what was out there on the market. Now, the Chargers were never going to go after the top-tier free agents. I think that's just a philosophy of Ortiz. But there were other players in a similar dollar amount that the Chargers could have gone for, and they didn't. So I'm going to pull up PFF.com because I want to show where some of these players rank. So let's pull up Bradley Bozeman first. So out of 64 centers in the NFL, he ranked 36th in overall grade. Pass blocking grade was 53rd out of 64. Run blocking was okay. He was so I pulled up the free agent list of centers. So the three big names off the board were Drew Dalman, who went to the Bears, Patrick McCarry, who went to the Jaguars, and he's a guard/center. Ryan Kelly, who went from the Colts to the Vikings. Now, Ryan Kelly signed a 2-year, $18 million deal. McCarry signed a 3-year, $37.5 million deal. And Drew Dalman was the top of the free agent class at centers. And he signed a 3-year, $42 million deal. Dalman's average annual value was $14 million. Now, they re-signed Bradley Bozeman, and his average value is $3.2 million. There's definitely a dollar discrepancy in what the Chargers wanted to spend. But let's take someone like Robert Hainsey, who went from Tampa Bay to the Jaguars. His average annual value is $7 million. Bradley Bozeman's about half of that. Well, let's pull up his PFF stats. So you're telling me the Chargers couldn't spend a little extra money to sign a player like this? His overall grade, he's 10th out of 64. Pass blocking, he's 4th. And run blocking, he's 11th. I'm struggling to understand how you have over $90 million of cap space, and you didn't want to sign someone who signed for a 3-year, $21 million contract, who, by the way, is younger than Bozeman. He's only 27. Bradley Bozeman is, I believe, it's coming to light now because of the injury, but regardless, the great teams protect their quarterback. Look at the Eagles last year. Their offensive line is outstanding. Even with Jason Kelce retiring, they had someone fit right into that center position, and they were dominant. It's very frustrating because it's almost a contradiction. You upgraded your wide receivers, you upgraded the run game, you upgraded your tight ends, but you did not upgrade your interior offensive line, and now you have a bigger problem because your all-pro tackle is done for the year. I'm just frustrated at this point. Because if you want to win, it starts up front. And Harbaugh preaches that. But you go ahead and you stuck with the same players last year that caused you issues in that interior offensive line. Bradley Bozeman's fine if you want him to have him as a backup. But there were other names on the free agent market for a little bit more money that they could have signed and really have upgraded that interior offensive line. So now let's go talk about Zion. So let's pull up Zion's PFF rating from last year. So out of 136 guards, he was like 47th overall. Pass blocking 61st, run blocking 50th. And I'm going to pull up all of the guards that were free agents in 2025. And like I said, I'm not talking about signing these top tier players. Let's look at Kevin Zeiter. So he signed a 1-year, $9 million deal in from the Lions to the Titans. Veteran guy. I think he's 33, 34. $9 million average annual value. Solid vet in the league. Cheaper than Mekhi Becton. And let's look at his PFF stats. Okay, overall grade, 5th out of 136 guards. Pass blocking 32nd. Run blocking 4th. So you're telling me that you couldn't sign him for a $9 million deal. This is the frustrating part. Like, there were players out there on the free agent market that would have been an improvement to that interior offensive line, but the Chargers stuck by what they had on the roster, plus re-signing Bradley Bozeman, signing another backup in Andre James, which is fine. You want to have some depth at the center position, great. But there are players out there that could have tremendously improved the offensive line. Herbert needs to be upright. He needs time to throw. We need 5 solid guys up front to get Merritt Hampton going, to get Najee Harris going, whoever's in the backfield at the time. It's so frustrating because now this has exploded into a major problem that the Chargers have to roll with because there's really no other free agents out there. I mean, we can go through the free agent list, so let's pull that up. Right now, as far as guards, you have Brandon Sheriff, who's another vet. Let's pull up his PFF stats. His overall grade is 53rd out of 136, so he's kind of right where Zion is. Where he excels is his pass blocking grade. It's 19th out of 136, and run block, he's 97th out of 136. But veteran guy. Let's pull up Dalton Risner. Dalton, because he was a starter last year. Okay, his grade. Overall, he's a 67. He's 42nd out of 136 guards. Pass blocking, he's 13th out of 136 guards. His run blocking is 96th out of 136 guards. But there's not much to choose from now. The Chargers went and signed a tackle, I believe it was yesterday, which was Saturday. So let's pull that up real quick. And this has ties back to Baltimore. They signed David Sharp, who's a former 4th-round pick who got drafted by the Raiders. He spent time with Houston, Washington, Baltimore, Carolina, and the Jets. He played with Ortiz in Baltimore in 21 and 22. He was on the practice squad. He's had some game actually came out of Florida. But this doesn't help the Chargers. This just gives them some depth. This doesn't fix the issues that they're going to have with the offensive line going forward. So as a fan, this is extremely frustrating because this team is built to compete this year, but the offensive line is a huge question mark going into week 1 now. Now, they have some players in camp that are playing well, like John Marie Salyer has been playing well, but is he really a starter? He started some games for the Chargers, but is he that full-time starter if, let's say, Trey Pipkins isn't playing well, if Zion isn't playing well, can he fit into those spots? It remains to be seen. And then on the center side, as far as free agents right now, which the Chargers are not going to even touch because they have, I think, 3 of them on the depth chart right now. There's not much to pick from. He was on the Chargers last year. It's just very frustrating. It's a different type of episode. It's more of a vent session. This is something the Chargers should have addressed in the offseason, and they didn't. They upgraded 1 position on the line when they knew they had 3. I'm going to send positive vibes to Trey Pipkins. I want him to succeed. I want all those offensive linemen to succeed. But I also don't want Herbert getting 3-4 sacks a game. I want him to be upright. I want him to be healthy this year. I think this is a make or break year for Herbert as well. There's a lot of talent on this team, but even with all that talent, if you don't have 5 people guarding you up front, it's going to be tough. Since I grew up in New Jersey, I remember watching Giants games, and when Eli Manning was still there, their offensive line was terrible, and it still hasn't been good. But I remember them just having no time to do anything to throw the ball because their offensive line was so bad. I know we have all-pro talent with Alt on that line, and Mekhi Becton is solid, but there's definitely some big question marks now going into today's game against the Saints. As the preseason continues and into week 1, I hope the Chargers can figure it out and this top 5 they have play like the top 5 that they need to play like. And that remains to be seen. I will keep an eye out as to the news coming out of camp as to what that offensive line looks like. And as of right now, there's going to be no rotation of those 5 like there was last week where Bozen was playing guard and Zion was playing center. I think that is totally out the window now, and the pressure's on for that starting 5. But we have a game against the Saints today. Looking forward to that. I'll put out a video after the game with my notes, things that went well, things that didn't go so well, so be on the lookout for that. As always, if you haven't, be sure to like, subscribe to the Electric Edge Podcast. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod, and let me know in the comments what you think about the offensive line with Rashawn being out for the year. Let me know if you think that the starting 5 that they're going to roll with is the right starting 5 or what they should have done differently in the offseason. Let me know your thoughts. Like I said, I read all my comments. Would love to hear from you. Would love to go back and forth with some Charger fans. With that being said, positive vibes being sent to the Chargers and they're now starting 5 on the offensive line. So to end it, as always, go Chargers and bolt up.